With the business community keeping a close watch on the U.S. elections, let's take a look at the implications of a Donald Trump or Joe Biden victory. CNN Business Emerging Markets Editor John Defterios joins us now live from Abu Dhabi. John, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, as we speak, Joe Biden is just 17 electoral votes away from winning the presidency. If he does become the president, what kind of impact will he have on Asian business?
Well, I think you're going to see a healing of relations with Asia, if you will, Rico, and I think this is a very important point. He talked about healing America on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. I think he'll do the same on a reset with China, but also with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which he would think offers great opportunity. Now, he has to straddle a fine line here, Rico, because particularly in the states that are supporting him right now, Michigan, of course, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, the former Rust Belt, he has to be shown to be standing up for American workers as well. This was Donald Trump's big claim to fame with Make America Great Again. But if you translate it into reality, it was more protectionist than trying to open up trade with the rest of the world. So I think you'll see Joe Biden try to reset into international organizations at the same time. That would include, by the way, the WHO, the World Trade Organization, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and as you're suggesting here, the TPP, the trade partnerships. If they're on a level playing field that he can sell back into the Democratic Party and his base in that Midwest that's helping him here get across the 270 point. It's not done yet, but it looks that way. I think that's the sort of tone you'll see, more globalist than isolationist from Joe Biden.
But John, on the campaign trail, Biden's stance on China sounded closer to Trump than that of his old boss, Barack Obama, and in one debate he even called President Xi Jinping a thug. So many analysts believe Trump's tough on China approach would last even under a Democratic president.
Yeah, I think it has to in terms of the narrative, Rico, but I think we have to be very careful in taking a look at what the policies actually transform into. This is a symbiotic relationship, the number one and number two economies of the world, and nobody's benefiting from a trade war right now, especially the U.S. consumer when you apply the tariffs on imported goods. It did get the attention of Beijing, but they've, in a sense, stood toe-to-toe with the United States, and I think there has to be a recognition by a Biden administration. This is the rise of the second superpower. I don't think in the Obama administration China was ready to take the reins of that superpower. I think that has changed with the lifetime presidency of President Xi, and therefore Joe Biden has to be much more cautious in the words that he's using. Part of what you talked about there was the narrative around the campaign. I think that would change when she's in office. But we have to separate here. There's going to be a bilateral relationship when it comes to trade. It has to be two-way. But I think there's also a greater recognition in the European Union and the United States the power of Chinese technology, data, and intelligence. And I think those policies will remain as tough under Donald Trump as it will be under Joe Biden now. And also, Brussels is taking the same stance. I think they're going to be that cooperative with China when it comes to 5G technologies and the systems that they install in governments and private corporations around the world.
But if Trump remains in office for another 4 years, John, could this trigger the revival of tit-for-tat tariff disputes like what we saw over the past 3 years of his administration?
You know, it's interesting, Rico. Remember when they had their first meeting, President Xi and President Trump at Mar-a-Lago? It was kind of like big bear hugs, sharing desserts together, and you thought it would be smooth sailing, and it went south from there. I don't think, if President Trump remains in office, he can keep that sort of rhetoric up with China, as China has cleared itself of the COVID pandemic by and large, is now putting barriers up for people traveling into China, as you saw today. But secondarily, as the U.S. goes through the second wave, and so does Europe, you cannot afford to have a trade war. So whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I think it would be a major misstep to say, I know we're dealing with the second wave of the pandemic. That will eat up the first half of 2021, and I'm going to fight a trade war at the same time. I just don't think it'll work. And I think the Chinese at different stages tried to be cooperative. So they offered the carrot and said, we'll try to negotiate. At the same time, they were matching tariffs with the United States. I don't think that's something China would have done 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's showing the rise of China. But at the same time, I think now there's going to be a much more cautious, even Joe Biden going into this to say, I can't appear weak to China. I think this is where the World Trade Organization, by the way, has to come to the fore, be more flexible, more reactive, and not so clunky in the future. And this is the criticism of the international organizations. By the way, as you know, Donald Trump hated international organizations and used them as whipping boys, if you will, right, to play to his base. Joe Biden won't take that tone, but he's going to ask for reform so they can engage and keep pace with this competition coming from China and the other states to level the playing field, as I'm suggesting.
All right, so currently we are in the phase one of that trade deal between the United States and China. And here in the Philippines, we always look to the United States for economic direction because it is a major trading partner. In your view, John, are the Republicans or the Democrats better at managing the U.S. economy?
You know, this is interesting because you always hear this narrative, right, Rico? And I know you've been in the business about as long as I have, that the Republicans provide much better economic management. I think we have to parse this a little bit, right? I think the corporations like the fact that Donald Trump cut corporate taxes down to 21%, and that fattened up their profits. But if you look over the last, 55, 60 years, it is the Democrats that have produced more growth. There's a study done by CFRA Research on Wall Street showing that the Democrats have delivered 4% growth over that time frame, vis-a-vis Republicans' average growth of 2.5%. Stock market performance over that time period, 11% return on the S&P 500 for Democrats, and 7% for Republicans. So put corporate America in one category, right, because they like the lower taxes. Debt management, budget management, stock market returns, and overall economic growth has to sit with the Democrats. In fact, in the first year of a Democratic administration, the usual return of the S&P 500 is 16%. That's why we see the market rallying today as Joe Biden gets very close to 270. And they like the idea that it's going to be a Republican Senate, so the spending doesn't go out of control. But budget management normally, and particularly under President Obama and President Clinton, was very sound. It wasn't the crazy Democratic spending that people refer to over the last 60 years.
CNN Business Emerging Markets Editor John Defterios, thank you so much for joining us live from Abu Dhabi.